I deregistered my child from school in the UK, and this happened. My hands were shaking. I remember just staring at the email on my screen, the little cursor blinking right over the send button. My heart was thumping so loudly I was convinced my family could hear it in the next room. This single click was about to officially pull my child out of the school system, a system I was part of that society tells us is the only path to a successful future. As my finger finally pressed down, a wave of pure terror washed over me. Have I just made the biggest mistake of our lives? Have I ruined my child's future? Hello, and welcome to Support for Worried Homeschooling Parents, a place dedicated to supporting you on your homeschooling journey. Subscribe for future videos. This is the story of what happened next, our journey from that moment of panic to the surprising reality we're living 6 months later. For any parent in the UK who is even thinking about this, I get it. I know the fear you're feeling. It's that knot in your stomach, a mix of rebellion, anxiety, and just a desperate hope that there has to be something better. Today, I'm not giving you the glossy, Instagram-filtered version of home education. I'm sharing the raw truth of our first 6 months. We're going to talk about the final straw that pushed me to do it, the surprisingly simple legal process here in the UK, the challenges in those first few weeks that had me questioning everything, and the incredible, unexpected changes that have turned our family life upside down in the best possible way. So, if you're on the fence, or just a little bit curious about what really happens when you take this leap, stick with me. Section 1. The decision. It wasn't one big, dramatic moment. It was more of a slow burn, a series of small, quiet heartbreaks. It was the light in my child's eyes getting dimmer with every school morning. It was the Sunday evening dread that started poisoning our weekends. The constant, soul-deep exhaustion, not from learning, but from trying to fit in. School had become a place where my child was surviving, not thriving. His natural curiosity was being squashed by the pressure to perform, to fit into a box that just wasn't his shape. That was our flashing green light. In all my late-night research, people talked about red flags and green lights for considering home education. Ours was that school was genuinely harming his mental well-being. He was becoming anxious and withdrawn, and the joyful, silly kid we had at home was completely absent. I also have some flexibility with my work, which I know is a massive privilege and another green light. I realized I wasn't running away from a problem at school. I was running towards my child. The final straw was a conversation where he told me he felt like he was disappearing at school. Disappearing. No parent ever wants to hear those words. In that moment, the fear of deregistering was finally smaller than the fear of doing nothing. I knew we had to make a change. Section 2. The process. Okay, now for the bit that properly terrified me. The legal stuff. I had these dramatic visions of courtrooms and stern-faced officials wanting to inspect my home. The reality, here in England, was shockingly anticlimactic. Under Section 7 of the Education Act, it's the parent's duty to ensure their child gets an education, either by sending them to school or otherwise. That little phrase, or otherwise, is the legal gateway to home education. For a child in a mainstream school, you don't need permission. It is your legal right. The actual process came down to one single action: writing a letter. I wrote a formal letter to the head teacher, stating my intention to withdraw my child to provide elective home education, effective immediately. I also noted that I was acting in accordance with the current pupil registration regulations. I sent it by email, so I had a clear paper trail. And that was it. The school is legally required to take your child's name off their register as soon as they get the letter and inform the local authority. They can't refuse. You don't have to go to a meeting or justify your decision, although they might offer one. The school acknowledged the email, and a few weeks later, a polite standard issue letter from our local authority landed on the doormat. Now, they don't have a duty to monitor home education day to day, but under Section 436 of the Education Act, they do have a duty to identify children who aren't receiving a suitable education. That's why they make what they call informal inquiries. I just replied with a brief outline of our educational philosophy and the kinds of resources we plan to use, and that's been our only official contact. It was all far less dramatic than I'd built it up to be in my head. Section 3. The challenges, the first 90 days. I'd love to tell you that from day one, our life became a beautiful montage of educational bliss. That would be a lie. The first month, honestly, was chaos. We were in what home educators call the deschooling period. It's a crucial time for the child and the parents to decompress from the rigid structure of school. But mostly, it just felt messy and unproductive. I was drowning in self-doubt. My child, finally free from bells and timetables, didn't magically pick up a textbook. He wanted to play, he wanted to rest, he wanted to be bored. Meanwhile, all my own ingrained ideas about what learning should look like were screaming at me. I felt this crushing pressure to replicate school at home. I had planners, timetables, a curriculum I thought we had to follow. I was trying to be the teacher, the lunch lady, and the headmaster, all while still just being mum. It was exhausting, and it was failing. Then, there were the two big fears. First, the socialization question. With a concerned frown, almost every person I told would ask, "But what about socialization?" It made me paranoid. Was I turning my child into a hermit? Second, the fear that I wasn't qualified. I don't have a teaching degree. How on earth could I provide a suitable education? The turning point was when I took the pristine schedule and chucked it in the bin. I finally accepted we didn't have to follow the national curriculum. The law simply asks for a full-time education that's suitable for his age, ability, and aptitude. We started leaning into his interests. We found local home ed groups full of kids of all ages, and I quickly realized socialization isn't about being trapped in a room with 30 kids your own age. It's about having meaningful interactions with people in your community. Section 4. The outcomes, 6 months in. So what does life look like now, 6 months on from that panic-inducing email? It's quieter, slower, and so much richer. That constant, low-level hum of stress that used to underpin our family life is just gone. The Sunday night dread has been replaced by a quiet excitement for what the week might hold. The biggest change is in my child. The light is back in his eyes. He's curious and engaged again. This morning, I watched him spend 2 uninterrupted hours in the garden building a ridiculously complex pulley system to lift a bucket of stones. He was using physics, maths, and engineering not because a worksheet told him to, but because he had a problem he genuinely wanted to solve. That is the education I'd dreamed of for him. What's better? His mental health, hands down. He's happier, more confident, and more himself than he's been in years. Our relationship is stronger too, because we're a team now figuring things out together. What's harder? Some days, the motivation just isn't there for either of us. It takes a huge amount of patience and creativity to keep things fresh, and the responsibility is all on me. That's a weight I feel every single day. There's no one else to blame if he falls behind. What surprised me the most? How little of our learning actually happens at a desk. It happens at the library, in the kitchen baking, on a walk in the woods, or just chatting to the man who runs the local shop. I was also surprised by how much I could learn, not just about Roman history or fractions, but about my own child and the unique, brilliant way his mind works. Section 5. Is it for you? A reality check. As much as this has been the right choice for us, I have to be clear. Home education isn't a magic wand, and it's not for everyone. It works for us because a few key things fell into place. A flexible work schedule, a child who is fairly self-motivated, and access to a brilliant local home ed community. But there are definite red flags. This is probably not the right path if you have a rigid 9-to-5 office job with no flexibility. It might not work if your child lives and breathes for large group team sports and the social hierarchy of school. It would be incredibly tough if you're juggling multiple young children with no support system. And, crucially, if your relationship with your child is already under a lot of strain, the pressure of home education can sometimes make things worse. Don't do it if you're just running from a problem at school you haven't really tried to resolve yet, like a specific bully or a difficult teacher. Don't do it because you think it will be easier than school. It isn't. It's just a different kind of hard. And please, don't do it if your child is dead set against the idea. This has to be a partnership. Conclusion. Remember my shaking hands before I sent that email? I think back to that person and I wish I could tell her what I know now. This morning, there was no frantic search for a clean uniform, no forcing down breakfast, no tearful goodbye at the school gates. There was just a quiet conversation about physics over a slice of toast. The fear I felt was completely real, but it was a fear of the unknown. 6 months in, I've learned that home education isn't about you becoming a professional teacher overnight. It's about being brave enough to redefine what education looks like for your family. It's about trusting your gut as a parent and, most importantly, trusting your child. It has been messy and challenging, but taking back control of my child's education was the best decision I have ever made. I know that first step is the hardest, and the official stuff can feel overwhelming. To help with that, I've created a free UK deregistration letter template. The link to download it is in the description below. Now, I would love to hear from you. Are you thinking about this journey, or have you already taken the leap? What's your single biggest fear or your most pressing question? Drop it in the comments below. I promise I'll read and respond to as many as I can. And finally, if you are that person right now, with your finger hovering over the send button, know this: you are not alone, and you are going to be okay. Thanks for listening. You can click this video here for another story about home education, or this other video here.